Joining us now, senior White House correspondent for Time magazine, Brian Bennett. Brian, good morning. You're here with this week's cover story titled The Summit Crisis. The crisis, you say, is of the president's own making. Tell us what you say inside.
Well, this image itself is very striking, and we wanted to bring attention to this week's events and the summit. And in particular, we wanted to bring attention to how striking it was that President Trump was willing to align himself with President Putin of Russia on so many issues, whether it was the way forward in Syria, anti-NATO rhetoric, all of these objectives that have been long-time Russian priorities. President Trump was willing to stand next to President Putin and seemingly align with Russian interests. Of course, one of the most incredible moments was when President Trump was asked point blank by a reporter, who do you believe, the U.S. intelligence assessments that Russia meddled in the 2016 elections or President Putin's denials?
Brian, you say here that Trump's defenders are just trying to say that the president is really driven here by a defensive reflex to defend the legitimacy of his 2016 election victory. Well, I think we can all agree that this is not helping with the legitimacy. So what are some of the other options that we need to, with a level head, start to consider here to explain the president's motivations for this behavior?
Well, so I think you're right. There is no satisfactory explanation for why the president has taken Putin and Russia's side on so many critical issues when it comes to U.S. interests overseas. And I think the big question is why? And when it comes to President Trump, certainly we know from people close to him that his ego plays a huge, huge role in that he is obsessed with the legitimacy of the 2016 election and his victory, and that seems to have clouded his judgment when it comes to all of these other issues. When it comes to next steps, certainly members of Congress are extremely concerned that President Trump is not taking the interests of the country first, is taking his personal interest or some other interest first. And that is something that the founders designed the presidency and specifically designed the oath of the presidency to address.
Hey, Brian, it's Sam Stein here. I've only worked for digital publications. I never worked for a print magazine like yours. This week made me very happy for working at digital publications because there were at least two, maybe three potential walkbacks of comments that were made by the president. I'm wondering, as someone who's putting together a print publication, as you see Trump say something and then say, you know, I didn't mean would, I meant wouldn't. If you see his press secretary say, he didn't mean no, he meant basically yes. How do you handle that as someone who has to put together a print publication issue? I mean, do you take those denials at face value? How do you adjust your coverage around them?
Well, when you look at the totality of what Trump said standing next to President Putin on Monday, that moment where he had the opportunity to confront President Putin, tell him not to meddle in the 2016, to his face standing next to him, he didn't take that opportunity. So even if there are these iterations of walkbacks, which, by the way, Trump did in a very ham-handed way, leaving it open to other people, to the possibility that other people may have hacked the 2016 election, it's entirely possible to paint a comprehensive picture that the President Trump is still not convinced that of the intelligence, or doesn't want to back up the intelligence that Russia meddled in the 2016 elections, and that he's continuing to try to undermine those conclusions.
By the way, Brian, Sam's long and winding question was just a humble brag, reminding us how young and hip he is. I've only worked for digital, man. I've only worked for digital.
What's print?
Get the print on your fingers. Sam Stein. The new issue of Time is The Summit Crisis. Brian Bennett, thank you very much. No comment, Sam?
I'm speechless.
Okay, good. Still ahead, President Trump seemed to suggest earlier this week that Montenegro could cause World War III. Now some lawmakers and members of Trump's own administration are weighing in, and they are not on the same page. That's coming up on Morning Joe.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.